Welcome into another episode. I'm really excited to be joined today by someone who has been an absolute blast to watch this year, has been her entire career, but especially as Gonzaga has really taken center stage as, without a doubt, the top mid-major in the country this year. I'm super psyched to be joined by Yvonne Ejim. Yvonne, first off, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Mark?
I'm really good. I have no idea how it's 2024 already. It does not feel like it should be January. I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday, and she mentioned something we did in July, and I was like, "Yeah, that's not that long ago." And then she's like, "Dude, it's like January." I'm like, "Oh, that's half a year ago." So it's like,
All right.
it feels like the season shouldn't even be as far in as it is, but we're already midway into WCC play, so
Right?
it's that's how it's going. But no, how's the start to your year been so far?
It's been really good. I'm very proud and satisfied, I guess, with a lot of my own play and a lot of my team play, how we've come back from different adversities and handled different teams. We played a lot of teams that I think was the first time we've played in our program history this
Mhm.
year. Which was really exciting for us. So I feel like we handled a lot of those challenges very well. And I was just like, it was super fun and exciting playing with my team every single game. So I really enjoyed the start of the season.
Yeah, it's been a blast to watch. I think pretty much off rip. So I went to University of Toledo and worked
Mhm.
around the team a lot when I was there. So I know pretty much everybody who's on the team. And um, so I knew when they were coming in to see you guys, like that was a big test right away because obviously you guys played last year.
Yeah.
So having that opportunity and then what you guys, I think you won by 21 in that game. So like, seeing that, seeing how the beginning of the season went, it's probably pretty clear right away this was going to be a step up this year.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask, like backtracking a little bit, what was the off season like for you guys as a group? Obviously, returning quite a bit,
Yeah.
one of the most experienced starting fives in the country. Um, I know in terms of the way that with how things went seeding wise last year, it was difficult. I feel like you guys definitely put together a much stronger body of work than a 9 seed.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't really control that, but like, what were feelings like coming off of the NCAA tournament and what you guys wanted to set out to do this year?
Definitely just one of our words that we used going into the off season was being a lot more uncomfortable. We felt that throughout the year, whether that was pre-conference, into conference, and post-conference and things like that, we weren't really pushing ourselves as much as we could have in order to prepare ourselves for that first round of the NCAA game. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting uncomfortable. We were doing things we haven't done before and trying our best to set ourselves up for success by putting ourselves in as many different situations as we can in order to be prepared and stay prepared. So that's something that we went into the off season. Like we need to make sure that we're targeting whatever we can, whether that's your individual play, whether that's team play. So that was like really rooted in a lot of our workouts in the off season.
So when you mentioned like being uncomfortable, what kind of is there like a particular scenario that stands out that you guys worked on that rings true to that in that process?
Yeah, I think definitely our defense, being uncomfortable in either guarding one on one or guarding different players, different sizes and things like that. Some positions were undersized, some positions were better physically and things like that. So using those to our advantage, finding out our weaknesses, and just trying our best to make sure that whatever breaks down, we still come together and play team defense. And that's also something that has been a really vital and major focus for us this year that we're still working through. So it's a work in progress, but we're still trying to make ourselves better each day with it.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so interesting too because like even though a lot of you guys have been together for 4 years now, like you're still learning new things about one another and finding new ways to play.
Yeah.
What's been maybe the biggest thing that you've learned about this group so far to start the year?
Um, we're very resilient in adversity, I feel like, and I feel like we're very composed and steady in those situations as well, especially when we come together as a team. I haven't I It's funny, I look at those different games when we're in the heat of the moment or when we're in the storm, and I look at my team and I'm like, you know what? Girls aren't freaking out and this is actually kind of nice. So I feel like we do that very well, and that has helped us get the record that we did in uh before conference and things like that, and how that's going to help us stay consistent through conference play as well.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point because I feel like, even going back to the tournament you guys had right around Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
obviously, third game in like 3 days. So you guys, I believe it was the game against Alabama where you guys struggled in the first half and came back a little bit in the second. But then you go the next couple games after that. And I think, like you're saying, that was a really big showing of you learned from that game, you grew from it. You started to
Yeah.
show more like, okay, we're not getting caught if we have a run up against us.
Yeah,
So that's been really
exactly.
big to watch.
Mhm. Definitely.
Has there been a moment that's maybe stuck out as like the moment for you guys this year? Like obviously I know a lot of people will point to Stanford, but I was wondering is that kind of what you guys feel or what has been kind of the moment where where you guys have maybe been able to recognize and stop like, hey, we're doing something pretty special this year.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like for me, it probably would have been that Alabama game. I know that they were a really tough opponent, and we had a lot asked out of us going into that game. Like, we need to make sure that we're either sticking to the scout or we're executing what we need to properly. Like, make sure that whatever happens, like, we're staying together as a team and we're trying our best to go in there and compete and win. And I feel like after Alabama, like, it for me it really showed that like my team and like my girls are like really capable of like doing what needs to be done to like win and to compete and to get better. And I think that is kind of like where it like started. I know Louisville, some of us are like a little tired and things like that, and we
Hmm.
lost a little focus, but knowing that we did what we had to do in Alabama meant that in the Louisville game we just lost a little bit of that, and if we kept it up we would have won that game type of situation. And kind of going into other games as well, like with Stanford and some of the other teams that we played afterwards. Like we just needed to stick to our game plan, play our game, and like that's how we won. So I feel like knowing that in the Alabama game was like a really good like momentum for us throughout the rest of our pre-conference play.
No, without a doubt. Especially too, the Alabama team is very good. So it
Yeah,
was it was fun. I mean, exactly like we're saying on. I don't know how much you guys check some of those things, but like believe after non-conference finished up, you guys were second in the country in strength of schedule,
yeah,
which rings true. And looking at how the games played, like it was one hell of a schedule. Um, when you obviously like coming into this year, when you talk about like goals being set and what you guys wanted to accomplish this year, what was that like? What were kind of feelings like? Obviously, I know you mentioned in terms of wanting to get better at facing adversity in the off season, but
hmm
when you guys knew what this schedule was going to be like coming in, what was kind of the feel and vibes around that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we sit down as a team and we make our like preseason like goals and things like that. And one of them, especially going into like the beginning of season, was like we want to win every game that we can. Like we're not going to go into any game being like, oh, it's going to be this type of game. Like no, we're going to go into the game and be like, we're going to put our best effort out there. We're going to compete. We're going to do whatever needs to be done to win. That's something that we always set as a goal for ourselves. We want to make sure that when we do get into conference play, that we're also setting high standards. We do want to be WCC champs, and that's something we've done in the past, and something that I believe that we can obviously maintain as a program as well. Just with like the girls coming in and kind of like that competitive strength that we have in us as well. I feel like that's something that we want to keep consistent. So those are different goals that we've set at the beginning of the year. Like we want to keep winning, we want to go far, and we want to stay like as consistent as a team that we can. So that's basically how some of those meetings go, or like some of those like little huddles and things like that.
No, I like that. Zooming out a little bit too and talking about your individual play, like you were very good last year and you have been your entire time at Gonzaga, but like this year you're
Yeah.
playing like an All-American. And I wanted to ask because like I mean that's one of the things that stood out for me. Like I know like last year, um, obviously it's not like you're doing an entirely different role or anything, but you're just that much more efficient. I think to me, you correct me if you feel otherwise, but I feel like your passing has been one of your biggest growths this year in terms of just how you're reading things and how quickly you're doing it. Um, and it's gone from like last year, I think at times, against bigger, more physical players, you could maybe struggle a little bit in terms of finishing through contact. But this year, you have been like taking the contact to everybody else. So what was your focus on in the off season, or what do you think maybe has helped you so much in terms of finding this groove this year?
Yeah, I think my outlook on what consistency looks like has been super helpful to my game and kind of like my mindset going into games. Like what type of consistent player do I want to be? What areas do I want to be consistent in? How do I stay consistent, still, get better, still, not do anything like crazy and things like that. Whether that's with like being a better finisher, reading the defense better, being a better defender, or like limiting my fouls as well, and things like that. So my outlook on consistency definitely helped during the off season and also into the beginning of this season, which gave me a lot more confidence in myself and in my game. And I feel like I was able to project that towards my team. And they're really good at like giving that confidence back to me as well. So kind of like those two working in tangent with each other. But then also like during the off season, just like getting into the work, trying to find my bread and butter and things like that, trying to find what works for me, maybe what I can add and things like that. I have done a lot of workouts in the summer where we're just like adding like little things into like pull up game, how I'm attacking and things like that, how I'm using hesitation, secondary moves, just to like get in, create contact, finish through contact, and also continuing to like strengthen the stuff that I'm already better at. Like if I'm like finishing through contact and trying to get the and one instead of just a foul, like how do I still stay consistent at that and make that, something that's just like part of me, part of my game. So a lot of all of that, like combining into like the player I am like today and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think it's interesting too because, like you mentioned, in terms of just getting better at things. Like obviously, you took a lot of twos last year as a jump shooter, and this year, I think like last time I checked, you were shooting like close to 47, 48% on long twos. You take a
Mhm.
lot of them and very well, obviously, because like a big part of your game is facing up and attacking off the bounce. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I think like so often when people like not even just saying you as a whole, but like look at a player who's like playing more of the 4 or 5. They're like, "Oh, well, she doesn't take threes. She doesn't do this." So I'm like, dude, it's not about taking threes. Like, not to get like too nitty gritty, but like, especially with the offense you guys play, so much
Yeah.
of what you do is like, okay, being awesome as a screener. Like, you're one of the best screen slippers in basketball, and it helps having the. I mean, dude, you guys are the best space team in the country without question. But you take advantage of that. Like in order to get the most out of shooting, you have to be so good getting downhill and making things happen in the paint to make the defense care. And um, like making all that work together. So like you're mentioning in terms of just getting better at those things, it just hits that much harder this year. So it totally makes sense.
For sure.
Has there been a moment this year where you've kind of just like, in terms of watching everybody else on the team? I don't know if you're somebody who like maybe sees things on court. I remember I was talking to Tamika Catchings not that long ago. She's like, I don't remember anything from playing games. I know it happened, but like it's so
Yeah.
it's different for everybody. But like, has there been a moment from one of your teammates this year that just kind of like had you? You're like, wow, like she really just did that.
Um, I feel like Eliza, one of her goals this year was to get a double double. And I kid you not, almost every single game, that girl's close to a double double or she's getting it. And I think the first double double, she was so proud of herself. She's like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I did that. Like, let's go. And then it was like the next game, she got like 11 and 14. And I was like, I don't really know if she like thought that was like not a part of her game, but I think she just like unlocked another level to her, another level of
Mhm.
physicality, another level of like competitiveness that like that's like always staying in her game. And I think that moment where I saw her just like continue to like kind of like exceed her own expectations, I was like, she's much more than like what she thinks she was. And I think that was really good for us because it brings so much more depth, just not into like our whole entire team, but like into the starting lineup, like how we start the game, how she attacks it at the beginning. I thought that was like a really like almost pivotal moment for her, but something she should never be like, oh, like I hope I can get there. Like, no, like she can get there and she can do more than that. So I thought at the beginning of the year when she got her first one, I was like, I think you got like five more in you or like seven, like 100 more in you, So like I think she just needs to like keep going and like never like limit herself to what she thinks like other people think of her. I think she can go so much farther than what she already is at right now.
No, that's really cool, and it totally stands out too, like you're saying, because part of what's so fun about watching you guys is like, especially when you have somebody who's so dominant in the paint like you are, having somebody who can really stretch the floor like she can just adds so much. And like you mentioned too, the physicality has been awesome because now it's like, okay, well, if you guys run a cross screen to get you sliced into the post, and then they have to, the other team has to switch it, and they have a four on Eliza. Okay, well now she's big, she's strong, and she's been way better in the post this year. So it's like, okay, well, it's way harder to guard. And yeah, it's I can nerd out over Gonzaga basketball all day, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly. I think it's been really fun to watch that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I've also I have to go back. My moment where I was like, okay, this is the team this year. To the Arizona game.
Mhm.
I can't remember if it was Caitlin or Kylie, but the cross up into the pull up
Oh,
three on the left wing was that was
mhm.
the shot this year because Arizona was starting to put together a run. They were
Yeah.
getting back into it, and I was like, okay, no, game's over from here on out.
Yeah. I think that was Kaylee. She
Yeah, I was pretty
definitely
sure it was Caitlin.
that one, I don't know if you saw, but, like, our bench reaction, the
Oh,
girls
I
on
saw the bench reaction.
yeah. I think we were on the plane leaving after that, and people were, like the coaches were on their laptops, like, rerunning it and, like, showing us everybody's reactions, like, it was wild, like, that was crazy. We were all so hyped, both in the game and after, like, it was something that, like, we were like, "We need this, like, postered, like, up in, like, Mac or something like that," like, it was crazy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. To backtrack a little bit on you as a player too.
Mhm.
Obviously from Canada, grew up in Calgary, played with Canada basketball. Is this your first time with the senior team this summer at
Yeah, this is
America Cup?
the
Okay.
first time, yeah.
So yeah, obviously one bronze at America Cup this year. Um, I wanted to ask what that experience was like for you, getting to, obviously like we just mentioned, first time playing with the senior team, getting to play. Kayla Alexander is like an international legend.
Yeah.
So what was that feeling like? What was maybe your biggest takeaway from it?
Yeah, I was definitely very honored and very blessed. I always say it, but I truly always mean it whenever I get to wear my flag. It really is like an incredible experience just for me to be able to do that, and especially at that level. I'm very grateful for like what I was able to learn and what I was able to see when I was out there, playing with a lot of those like senior players and things like that that have played professionally, have been around like so much different types of basketball, was definitely like phenomenal for me because I got to learn so much from them. I got to learn so much from my coaching staff, and I got to learn so much from my competition as well. I think that really just um, like buys into like the type of game that I want to create and things like that. Being versatile, not in one area of basketball, but in many different areas of basketball. That's something that Canada basketball has able to was able to give me as an experience. So I'm very grateful for that. A lot of those older players, like I played with Kayla, and I got to play with like Emily Potter and things like that. And just like seeing their game, seeing how they fit, see how they work in like the Canada basketball system. It was very interesting and also like very fun and exciting to be around and be a part of and kind of like get in there myself. Like I didn't just have to see it, I could actually be a part of it. So it was really good just learning from those girls and being able to play with them, and also just like being able to play in that environment. Like at the senior level, like it's another thing up there. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like you guys are crazy. But it was so much fun and so exciting and so rewarding. Just being able to play at that like such an elite level with such elite players too.
Was there kind of like an eye-opening moment for you where that made you go like, oh wow, okay, this is different. This is a different level of basketball.
Um, definitely. When we were in Mexico, I think we had a practice. I think it was in the middle of tournament play or maybe like the day before, but like we just had a scrimmage the day before, and then we got on, and I think we moved from 2 days to 1 a days, but that 1 a day practice felt like 5 hours long. I was gassed. I was so tired. I was like, there's no way. I was like, this is the hardest practice in my whole entire life. And I was like, I'm just gonna have so much more of this. I'm just gonna have to get used to it at this point. That was like a pivotal moment for me. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm really here. But like after experience that, I kind of was like kind of happy that I got to be there, you know, like some people like you don't get to experience like how tired I was and how tired my team was. Like it was at the end of practice and our coach is like, okay, full court scrimmage, first to 12, and like nobody could score. Like we were just running up and down playing defense, trying our best to make buckets and things like that. And like just trying to like lean into that like grittiness and things like that of the game, like right there in that moment, I was like, yeah, like this is where I want to be. This is like the type of team I want to play with. Like I want to grow in this type of basketball. So it was it was definitely that practice. I will never forget that practice for the rest of my life.
I love that. Yeah, everybody has one of those practices where it's like, oh wow, okay, that's gonna be imprinted on my mind forever.
Yeah.
Um, Especially too looking at Canada basketball, I think it's really fun because like obviously there were quite a few senior players on the team who have been there before, but like you, Aaliyah, Kasan Prosper, like there's a ton of youth coming up too that was playing. I mean, even Silas Swords wasn't in college yet. And then I mean, like extrapolating too, you can look. There's just the youth system as a whole for Canada is really popping. Is that
Mhm.
something that you've kind of like felt like started to notice? Like, oh wow, okay, we're really starting to hit a different level.
Yeah, for sure. I felt after like my age group and things like that, like the younger age groups, that's where there was like a lot more involvement in Canada basketball, just trying to find as many girls and as many talent as they could, opening up more like camps and things like that for different girls to get experience. I thought they're doing like a really good job, just like building like foundational like Canada basketball like across the country and like really like choosing girls that like want to be a part of the program and can like build the program as they come along in age groups. I think a lot of that is like really good and beneficial to the growth of Canada basketball, and I think that they've just been doing a really good job of that so far.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it keeps growing because you can see like again, like you can see like all the seeds being planted over the last couple of years and where that's headed, and it's going to
Yeah,
be fun, especially with the group that, like you mentioned, with your generation where that's at. I'm excited.
yeah, me
Um,
too.
yeah. So again, backtracking again too, what sets you to get Gonzaga? Because I know, if I remember correctly, you have a pretty big family. You're one of seven, correct?
One of 10.
One of 10. Oh my god. Okay, sorry. I totally misread. But how did you end up at Gonzaga? Because I know if I remember correctly, it was between them and Iowa State.
Yes, Gonzaga and Iowa State. Yeah, so my older brother, he went to Iowa State, so it was kind of a nice little like family connection with that. Um, but I definitely chose Gonzaga just because of like how I felt within like the team when I went there on my visit. I felt a lot more connected. It felt like I was kind of already on the team when I went there, and I
Hmm.
really liked that vibe because just like being an international and especially like when it was like during COVID and we couldn't go home a lot, like being in an environment where like I felt like it was my second family was really good for me. So I really like that. I like their competitiveness, how they like foster their players like growing and things like that. I know some people look at it and they're like they don't really use a lot of their freshmen, but when you think about it and kind of like how I went along, like they really do build their players throughout their program and I think it's very beneficial as you go along. I definitely like really like that. I like their style of play too. It was very obviously very beneficial for someone like me in my position. I feel like they gave me a very clear outline of like what I was going to be and like how I was going to fit going into it, and that kind of really attracted me. Iowa State did a really good job at that too. I mean, I give like props to both those schools. I had a very hard time choosing which school I was going to go to. Like it took me a couple weeks after I went on both my visits. I was like, I had to make a pros and cons list, and those things were, like equal to. And I
Yeah,
was like, I don't know what to do at this point. I threw away the list. I was like, I have no idea. So, but I really, I don't regret choosing Gonzaga. I really like my time here. I really like the people here too. They make it all the best. Besides the basketball in the school, like just the environment and the community, what I feel like in the kennel, what I feel like outside of the campus and things like that, it really is just a phenomenal atmosphere that they create here. And I'm very like happy to be a part of this too.
that's awesome. So for people who don't know her, how would you describe Coach Fortier to people, and why what about her sold you the program in some ways?
Mhm. Yeah, she's definitely a very caring person. And she just like she's very growth minded, I feel like she just wants to get better, whether it's herself, whether it's like the individual, like the whole person, and kind of like her whole team. Like she really is putting in like strategies and like different things in order to help like foster growth. And I feel like that's what really attracted me and things like that, because I wanted to grow into like the player I wanted to be at the end of my 4 years. I wanted to grow into the type of goals I wanted and the goals that I set coming into university and things like that. So I feel like that's kind of what I've most felt from Coach Lisa, and kind of like what I've most benefited from Coach Lisa is kind of like that area of herself.
Hmm. And especially too when you talk about what your time here has been like and where it's headed. Um, what kind of did you imagine for yourself when you first got to Spokane, and how is looking backwards, how do you feel like that's gone, and is there anything that you maybe like tell yourself looking backwards?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't thought I'd be here when I was a freshman. Freshman year, didn't do much. I did a little bit of something because, like, sometimes with like COVID, people get sick. So I'd be like, "Hey, I'm available," like jump in and things like that. So I kind of knew that like I could really play with this team, but I didn't know I'd like obviously be at this level. I'm very proud of myself. I'd definitely tell myself when I was a freshman that like I was doing all the right things. I had a really good relationship with one of my seniors, Louise Forsyth. She was a she was from Canada as well, so it was kind of a nice little connection that I had coming in. She was my host when I was being recruited to and on my visit, so I really appreciate Lou. But during my freshman year, me and her would always be in the gym working out and things like that. Like if we had a game and we didn't play much, like we'd go into the gym after the game and like get shots up and play ones and things like that. And even though those nights were long and it was hard, and it was just freshman year and I'm online and I'm just getting into college and I'm away from my family and all the other adversity you want to name out and things like that. I think I was doing everything right that I needed to do to maintain my confidence, maintain my level of play, my competitiveness, and kind of like that drive to just continue to want to get better. Continue to want to get better. Yes, I think I said that right.
No, you're good. That was great.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, basically that. I tell myself that I was doing what I needed to do.
no, I mean, that's really special because I think it's hard to find that. Like, it's easy to get get in your head and kind of get lost in some of that stuff. And like you mentioned with consistency earlier, what do you
Mhm.
think is maybe been the biggest thing for you in terms of becoming consistent and finding consistency? Because I think it's one thing for somebody to go out and drop 20 points and grab 10 boards in a night, but to do it consistently and nightly, and not even just if the shot's not falling, like you still have an impact.
Yeah.
What's been biggest for you in terms of finding that kind of consistency?
I think it definitely comes to where I put my mindset at and like where I put my focus at. I go into games, especially this year, wanting to like, do certain stuff that will help the team. So whether that's like I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna grab boards, or I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna play like good defense and things like that, or I'm gonna try my best to finish as well as I can. I feel like where I put my focus and how I execute that with like the type of mindset I'm going at has helped me like stay consistent, because it just keeps me in an area where I know that I can control, that doesn't get me all like flustered and worried about, oh, what's not going right, what can we do better. Like at least I can be here, I can be in this moment, I can be present and try my best to do this one thing or these like couple of things. I feel like that focus and that mindset has really helped me be consistent, and also learning throughout the off season and throughout the years, like how to get into that mindset and how to not focus on everything that's like going on or everything that's going bad, but like what I can control. I feel like that's definitely a growth area that I've had going into like sophomore and junior year and senior year, learning how to focus on what I can control and letting that kind of build how consistent I've become.
Hmm. I wanted to ask too, in terms of consistency, like how do you kind of balance that with leadership too? Because I know you did a bigger leadership program with the NCAA.
Mhm.
this past year, and obviously has have grown as a leader on the team. How do you kind of balance being a leader and also wanting to be the best player you can be? Because I know, like, I think again on surface, like you can look at that and be like, oh, that just makes sense. But for some people, it's really hard to find a way to to balance like finding your individual success, but also finding your best ability as a leader.
Yeah. I definitely think I'm a different type of leader than some of the other girls on my teams. Like, I'm a different leader than Brenna. I'm a different leader than Lee. I'm a different leader than Eliza and Lynn and all the other girls on my team. Um, but I feel like leaning into like who I am and how I can most benefit other girls, how I can most benefit myself, is the best leader that I can be. I try and help myself as much as I can in order to help my team. I try and help my team as much as I can in order to help myself. And being able to find that balance of picking them up, pushing them, picking myself up, pushing myself, has been like what I try my best to do as a leader. Like, I try my best to give tips and things like that. I try my best to equalize that with encouragement, which sometimes I do well, sometimes I don't do well, because I'm more of like a technical, like, where how's the game looking? Like, how can you do this better? How can you do that better? But trying my best to lean into like how different I am of a leader and trying my best to bring forth that to the table, is how I work through being like a consistent player and being a dominant player as well. Like, if I want to be dominant, like my team has to be like doing good. That's something that like this program and this style of basketball kind of works for me. So at the end of the day, if my teammates aren't doing well, like I have to pull them along. I have to pick them up. I have to challenge them, not only for myself to benefit, but like for our whole entire team to benefit. So understanding that effect and how I can balance all of that out has helped me to be a leader that kind of adds to this team and things like that. So I feel like I'm still learning and I'm trying my best to do a good job, but continuing to understand that and try my best to execute it, is kind of like how I'm going forth with that like leadership role and being consistent in that area too.
No, I think that's such a bar because like you said, in terms of, being the best you can be, you have to your team has to be playing well. Like it can't just be one or the other.
Yeah.
And finding that balance is really important. So I know I really appreciate that mindset. Um, in terms of talking about like what's next too, like not to get too far ahead, but I want to ask you like what things you want to do. Obviously, it's your senior year. What things are you hoping to accomplish, not just in season, but moving forward from here.
Yeah, well, I want to make it super far with my team. We want to go super, super deep in the tournament, like Final Four. Like we're really shooting there. We tell ourselves that every single day. Like we're trying to be a Final Four team. Let's work like a Final Four team. Let's compete like a Final Four team. Like we need to be able to set standards and meet them and get ourselves there. So I'm excited for like how my team kind of like fits into that going into like conference play and after we finish that, but conference has just started, so let's just start there.
Hmm.
For myself, I mean, honestly, like I want to say that the like sky's the limit. I don't want to limit myself to anything. I want to try my best to maintain where I'm at now and just keep getting better. I don't want to fall back. That's something that I try and like remind myself is that like we're here and like we want to either stay here or we want to get better. Like I don't want to drop. So trying my best to keep myself in scenarios that help me get to where I want to be. And if I have that mindset, then it'll kind of just like whatever comes with it will like go along with that mindset as well. So trying to make sure that I'm focusing on that. Um, other than that, I mean, after college basketball, I want to play professionally wherever that takes me. I want to be able to play overseas. I want to be able to play with Team Canada and things like that. So being able to have those goals and things like that and have like the type of season and the type of play that I have now, I feel like I'm working in good steps to getting there. So that makes me very happy and very proud, but making sure that I'm still continuing to put in the work to get there, not only for myself, but for my team and for like different teams that I hope to end up on.
No, I really like that because I think, but even just speaking for myself, I think one of the hardest things to do is stay rooted in where you're at in the present, without thinking. Obviously, like what you do now is what builds up to you getting to the future. Thinking about the future as much as you want, like Yeah, it helps you think about it, but it doesn't necessarily do anything in terms of getting you there. So, finding that's really special. Um,
Mhm.
Last thing I do have to hit on before we get out of here. When I say that Oregon State and Washington State are going to be part of the WCC next season, obviously you will not be playing against them. But what does that feel like? Because I still, it's been a month since we've had that announced, and I can't wrap my head around it yet.
Yeah, I know, it was crazy. I didn't even realize it at first. I just saw some WCC posts, saw Oregon State and Washington State, and I was like, I didn't even realize it until people started talking about it, like, "Oh!" But I think it's really good for the WCC.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a really good conference, and, adding those 2 teams in will be, like, very beneficial, not only for them, but for the other teams in this conference as well, and also for the other sports too. So I think it just benefits the WCC as a whole. I think it's really good, competition-wise, and it shows kinda like the caliber of play that we're already at right now and how, like, those 2 teams coming in will just, like, continue to add to that.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I was the same thing in terms the whole Pac-12 fall is just wild, but like same thing. Like I feel like Oregon State, obviously they're still undefeated this year. They've been really good.
Yeah.
Washington State's always really solid, so it's like when you add that, with you guys, Santa Clara has been really fun to watch this year and going to continue getting better. Like there's a lot to be excited about, so I'm excited to see how it goes. But like you said, can't think too much about next year when we still got this year to go, but it's hard not to think about that
I
one.
know, right? All the
Yeah.
possibilities, it's
No,
crazy.
exactly. But Yvonne, I really appreciate you making the time. It was really dope to get to know you. I'm excited to keep watching you guys this year. Is there
Thank
anything that you want to plug or shout out before we get out of here?
um, Not much. Keep watching us, we're gonna keep playing as good of basketball as we can. Um, yeah, that's about it. Shout out to all the other Gonzaga sports that did amazing this past, season. Um, Go women's soccer. But, yeah, I think that's about it.
Awesome, perfect. Well, to everyone listening, thank you for listening. You can watch Gonzaga throughout the rest of the year. We will have a lot coming up with WCC play into the tournament. Do not forget about the mid majors just because non con is over. Still a
Mhm.
lot of basketball going on. And most importantly, have a great rest of your day.